drywaller's mesh. Put the drywaller's mesh around the blank to get it to the same, get the OD of the blank to the ID of the Unibutt. Normally it doesn't take too much. On my stand-up tuner rods I'm using, on my 50 class rods, I'm using UB2s, AFCO. And so it's a matter of shimming up the inside. I want that to be tight, but I don't want it to be loose at all, simply because I don't want this Unibutt to go on cockeyed. So, because once it's on, it's on. So I want this to be nice and snug. That's a little too snug. So I play with it a little bit to get it to the right outside diameter on this drywall mesh. And it's just a matter of fiddling with it and taking a little bit off here and there to get it to the right diameter. So you can see that's a nice snug fit. What happens when you have it as a nice snug fit up at the top is you assure yourself that the ferrule is going to go onto the butt of the rod squarely. So you're going to have a straight shot. There are times if you go on a little loose and it sits, it may look perfect when you set it for the night to dry overnight, but after you go back up and look at it later, it's wandered off to a side or it's fallen down. I don't want any of that to happen. So what I do is I make sure that this fits snug over that tape and it's not going to wobble at all. That brings up a dilemma, because you'll see here that I've already put the tip top on the rod. So I've sealed off that end, and by having a tight seal on this end, I'm going to have a problem with compressed air. Forgive me, it's been hot in here all day. So I'm going to have a problem with compressed air once I get the Unibutt ferrule on, and I had a problem with this years ago and I figured out how to solve it, and I'm just going to tell you how I do it. This is my method. I'm not saying anybody's right, anybody's wrong. This is just my method, because I've come up here the next morning too many times and had that rod back off. Then you have to get out the Dremel, cut that Unibutt ferrule off, take it off, and put another one on. And then you have to chisel away at the cement so the next Unibutt ferrule will fit on there. So what I did is I actually, and I'll zoom in so you can take a look at it, I actually drilled out the inside, put a hole right at the bottom of the ferrule in the groove. And what's going to happen is when this rod's done, that cement is actually going to come out that hole and it's going to plug it up. But what it's going to also do in the meantime is let air escape. And I've never had any problems with corrosion or anything like that getting up in the rod, because these Unibutts are sealed Unibutts. There's an O-ring right below this wing, or right below this nut. So when those two pieces of the rod go together, they are sealed. So what I do is damn near fill this with cement. I then take a paper towel. That's another thing. When you're doing this, make sure you have plenty of paper towels. It's going to get messy. You want to take care of the mess before it gets too bad. So I filled the ferrule with the epoxy. Now I'm going to put epoxy above and all throughout the butt of the rod. So I'm getting that rod bond in all the nooks and crannies of the drywall mesh. I'm getting it all over the blank, which has already been scored and roughed up. The inside portion of this ferrule is irregular, so it'll give a lot of room for cement to lock into. And then for good measure, I always stick some up the tube of the blank. Again, this is a situation where I feel you can't have enough cement. The last thing anybody wants is a rod failure coming apart at this stage of the game. So, we've got the ferrule filled with cement, which I'm holding in my left hand. We've got the blank covered with epoxy. And what you're going to do is you're going to turn this over, and don't forget, do not forget to put this back on before you cement it onto the rod. If you don't put it on, no way of getting it onto the rod. other than cutting it off and putting a new one on. So what I'm going to do is start wiggling and getting that down, and you can see the cement coming out the bottom of the rod. The reason again for that is because the blank is sealed at the top and it's an airtight seal. So this is another little bit of reassurance to me to let me know that this blank is, everything's constructed right and everything's constructed solid. So I've got my ferrule onto the rod. I get almost all the way onto the rod and I back it off. And I back it off for a couple reasons. One, I want to get the glue into the spots that aren't covered yet. And two, I want to take off excess before it gets onto the grips. So what you're doing here is just a little preventive maintenance before you, or I should say you're controlling your disaster, I guess would be a better word for it. So you get this down onto the rod and you let it sit. And you can see the glue came out the top. That's all going to seal off this hole. So what I've done is allow air to decompress inside the blank, which is going to keep the Unibutt from pushing off of the rod blank overnight while this glue dries. I'm using Rod Bond here for this, which is the 24-hour cure. So it's going to take a while for it to harden and get to the point where the rod won't move. So again, you just take your time going around, cleaning up any mess that you have, paying attention to detail on this now versus tomorrow morning when it's hardened onto the rod. Denatured alcohol for cleanup if you need it. And I just like going over everything before it gets any semblance of hard. I want to get it off of that blank. Get that off. Again, go up to the top, scoop off any residue. And then something else I have here is I went to the fabric store, Joann Fabrics or any of those, and I guess this is a needlepoint needle thingy, whatever it is, that type of sewing that they do and making sweaters and stuff. So I don't know if you heard that or not, but that escape of air just lets me know that the back pressure is relieved. And I'll go over this with a little denatured alcohol, clean it. That hole is still plugged. So, and it's plugged with cement, so you're not going to be able to do anything with it. And you're not going to have any fluids escape or get in there or anything like that. So then you would merely attach it to the Unibutt. Tighten that all the way down and align it. So these rods are going to sit overnight. I've gotten all 5 of them done. So they're all they need to do now is cure a little bit, and then they will be packed up and getting ready to go down to Texas. So make sure everything's all clean. And again, you notice I haven't taken this blue tape off. It stayed on the entire time, which keeps my grips nice and brand new clean. So I'll pull these off tomorrow and do a quick video of the final 5 rods. And the gaff is coming along. I got the butt wrap put on the abalone today, and tomorrow I'm going to be going into some detail about the grips and the Turk's head knots on that. And then that'll get a polyurethane finish tomorrow night, and then these will probably go out on the road Tuesday or Wednesday whenever I feel that they're dry enough. So weather's been warm the last couple days, so these rods should dry up nice. I prefer to have them dry and 100% complete before they go out the door. I don't want to rush it at this stage of the game. So stay tuned tomorrow for the final, and actually it'll be on this video, but I'll talk to you in the morning. Night.